A man runs through the desert, dust clinging to his sandals. The wind howls against his face. Behind him, silence. No soldiers, no shouts, no Pharaoh. Just the crushing sound of guilt echoing in his chest. He doesn't look back. He can't. 40 years have passed since that day in Egypt. 40 years since he ran from a life of luxury and a life of failure. His name is Moses, and today he's about to meet a flame that never dies. The sun beats down over the wilderness, a sea of rock, sand, and silence. Every day looks the same. Every night feels longer. Moses now tends sheep for his father-in-law, Jethro, a prince turned shepherd, a man who once carried the weight of destiny, now carrying nothing but a staff and regret. He watches the sheep graze in the heat. He looks at his hands, the same hands that once killed an Egyptian, the same hands that tried to deliver justice his own way and failed. He's not young anymore. The fire in his heart, long gone. Sometimes he wonders if God even remembers him. Sometimes he hopes he doesn't. But that's the thing about God. Even when you've given up on yourself, he hasn't. One day, Moses leads his flock further than usual. He climbs toward a lonely mountain the locals call Horeb, the mountain of God. The air changes there. It's quieter, holier, like the ground itself is waiting for something. Moses steps carefully, guiding the sheep between sharp rocks. Then, something catches his eye. A flicker, a light, a flame dancing in the distance. He squints. It's coming from a bush, a small, dry bush, one that should have turned to ash in seconds. But it doesn't. The fire burns bright, alive, and wild, yet the branches stay whole, the leaves untouched. Moses stops breathing. He takes a step closer. The fire crackles, but not like any fire he's ever heard. It almost sounds alive. Moses whispers, "I must go see this strange sight. Why the bush does not burn up." He walks closer, step by step. The heat grows, but not painfully. It's warm, like a presence, not a flame. Then a voice, soft but stronger than thunder. "Moses. Moses." He freezes. His heart pounds. "Yes," he whispers. "Here I am." The voice answers, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Moses trembles. He slips off his sandals, feet touching the warm earth. The desert wind grows still. The voice continues, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hides his face. He knows this is no ordinary fire. This is the fire that spoke the world into being. The voice breaks the silence again. "I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their oppressors, and I have come down to rescue them." Moses can barely breathe. Those words, "I have seen," "I have heard," they pierce him, because for years he thought God was silent. But now, in the fire, God speaks, and not just about Israel's suffering, but about Moses himself. God says, "Now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Moses stumbles backward. His voice shakes. "Who am I? That I should go to Pharaoh? That I should bring them out?" He's thinking of his failures, his exile, his fear, the 40 silent years. And then, God answers with the same words he speaks to us when we feel unworthy. "I will be with you." The fire burns brighter, not to destroy, but to reveal. Every spark seems to whisper a truth Moses had forgotten. You are not finished. Moses looks at the bush again, still not consumed, and suddenly he understands. The bush isn't just a miracle. It's a message, a symbol of what grace looks like, a symbol of a life that should have burned out, but didn't. Moses' heart begins to stir again. Could it be that God still has a plan for him? Could it be that this fire, the one that never dies, is meant to burn inside him too? The desert feels different now. The silence doesn't hurt anymore. It feels like hope. Moses looks down at the shepherd's staff in his hand. Just a piece of wood, smooth and worn. A reminder of a simple, wasted life. But God says, "What is that in your hand?" Moses answers, "A staff." God replies, "Throw it on the ground." He hesitates, then drops it. The staff hits the dirt and turns into a living serpent. Moses jumps back. "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail," God says. He reaches trembling fingers toward the snake. The moment he touches it, it becomes a staff again. Smooth, familiar, but not the same. "This," God says, "is the sign that I have sent you." Moses looks at it, eyes wide. The tool of his old life, now turned into a weapon of wonder. Because when you place what's in your hand into God's, He turns ordinary things into miracles. The fire flickers again. The voice softens. And for the first time in decades, Moses feels alive. He realizes something breathtaking. The bush never burned out, because God's presence never does. It's not just fire. It's faith, one that endures through every storm, every failure, every desert. And right here, in this holy moment, a runaway shepherd begins to become a deliverer. Moses stands before the flame, silent. The desert wind brushes his face, carrying whispers of destiny. But his heart is heavy. Even now, standing in front of the voice of God, he doubts himself. He whispers, "Lord, I have never been eloquent. I am slow of speech and tongue." It's not just a confession. It's an excuse born from years of hiding. The voice answers, steady and strong. Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? The ground trembles slightly, then softly. Now go. I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But fear runs deep. Moses looks at his hands again, the same hands that once struck in anger. "Please, Lord," he begs, "send someone else." There's a pause, a silence that feels like a storm about to break. Then God replies, not in wrath, but in resolve. "Your brother Aaron is on his way to meet you. He will speak for you. I will help both of you, and this staff in your hand, you will perform signs with it." Moses exhales, trembling. He doesn't feel ready, but somehow he knows. Readiness doesn't matter when God has spoken. The next morning, the sky glows like fire itself. Moses gathers his few belongings. He tells his wife, Zipporah, "God has called me back to Egypt." She looks at him, part fear, part faith. She doesn't question him. She simply nods. Because sometimes when God calls, you don't need to understand. You just need to trust. Moses walks out into the desert again. But this time, he's not running away. He's walking toward something. Each step feels heavier. Each memory of Egypt stirs old guilt. The sound of chains, the cries of his people, the face of Pharaoh. But as he walks, he grips his staff tighter. It's more than wood now. It's a reminder of who goes with him. Days pass. The desert stretches endlessly, but Moses feels something burning in his chest. It's not fear. It's the same fire he saw in the bush. He starts to realize the bush was never about the bush. It was about what happens when God's presence fills something ordinary. A desert shrub, a simple shepherd, a broken man. That's what the fire does. It burns away excuses, not identity. It purifies, not destroys. And when you carry that kind of fire, even deserts become holy ground. Far away, another man is walking toward the wilderness. Aaron, Moses' brother. He doesn't know why, but God has placed a stirring in his heart. He just feels he needs to find his brother. They meet on a lonely path under the burning sun, two brothers who haven't seen each other in 40 years. Moses drops his staff and runs to him. They embrace, tears mixing with desert dust. Aaron looks at him, confused. "Moses, what happened to you?" Moses smiles faintly. "God happened." As they near Egypt, the familiar air of oppression returns. The Nile still glimmers, but behind its beauty, chains still rattle. Israel still groans, and Pharaoh still rules with an iron heart. Moses and Aaron step into the palace, the same palace Moses once called home. He remembers the marble floors, the towering pillars, the eyes of guards who once saluted him, now stare with suspicion. Pharaoh sits on his throne, unmoved, unbothered. The air feels heavy. Aaron speaks the words God gave them. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." A long silence. Then laughter fills the hall. Pharaoh leans forward, eyes sharp. "Who is this Lord that I should obey him? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Moses' heart sinks, but he doesn't turn away. Instead, he drops his staff before the throne. It hits the floor and turns into a serpent again. Gasps echo through the palace. The magicians step forward, throwing their own staffs, and they too become serpents. But then, Moses' serpent swallows all the others. And the room falls silent again. Still, Pharaoh's eyes remain cold, his pride like stone. That night, Moses walks alone near the Nile. He stares at his reflection in the dark water. He feels small again, helpless. But then a breeze passes, warm, like the whisper of that same flame. He looks up at the stars, and somehow he remembers. The bush didn't burn out, and neither will he. Because when God starts a fire in your soul, no Pharaoh, no fear, no failure can put it out. As he returns to camp, Aaron finds him sitting by the fire. Moses looks up, weary. "What if they never believe me?" he asks. Aaron places a hand on his shoulder. "They don't need to believe you," he says softly. "They need to see the fire that sent you." Moses stares into the flames, and in them he sees again that holy bush on the mountain, still burning, still alive, still calling him forward. He realizes the fire wasn't just a moment, it was a mission. And when God sets a soul on fire, that light is meant to guide others through their darkest nights. The journey is only beginning, and the God who spoke from the fire is not done showing his power. Days turn into weeks. Moses and Aaron stand again and again before Pharaoh. Each time the words are the same, "Let my people go." And each time Pharaoh's heart hardens. Each time he laughs at the God of the slaves. Then the miracles begin. The Nile turns to blood. Frogs cover the land. Darkness chokes Egypt like smoke. And through it all, Moses' heart burns with a strange mix of fear and faith. This isn't the Moses who ran away. This isn't the man hiding in the desert. This is the man who has walked through holy fire and come out carrying it inside. The more Pharaoh resists, the brighter that fire burns. Because the God who called from the bush isn't finished revealing his glory. Then comes the night of silence before freedom. The Israelites huddle in their homes, the smell of lamb's blood painted on their door frames. Moses walks among them, whispering the words God gave him. "Stay inside, eat in haste, tonight the Lord will pass over you." The moon hides behind clouds. An eerie stillness falls over Egypt, and then a cry, then another, and another. Pharaoh's pride finally breaks under the weight of God's power. He sends word through trembling lips. "Go, leave my people. Go, worship your God." And so, under a sky still heavy with judgment, a nation begins to walk out of slavery. Hundreds of thousands, carrying nothing but faith and borrowed hope. Moses looks back at the land that once called him murderer and whispers, "The God of Abraham has not forgotten." But freedom always meets fear again. Behind them, Pharaoh's army. Ahead, the Red Sea. The people cry out in panic. "Why did you bring us here, Moses? To die in the desert?" Moses lifts his face to the heavens. He remembers that night by the bush. The warmth, the voice, the words, "I will be with you." He raises his staff, the same one that turned to a serpent, the same one God transformed from ordinary to holy. The wind begins to roar. The sea rumbles like thunder, and before their eyes, the waters split in two, walls of blue rising on either side, a dry path glowing between them. The people stand frozen. Moses turns to them and cries, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the salvation of the Lord today." And they walk, through walls of water, through the impossible, through faith itself. When the last foot steps onto dry ground, Moses lowers his staff, and the sea closes. Pharaoh's chariots vanish beneath the waves, and for the first time in generations, the people of Israel are free. That night, the stars shine like sparks over the desert. The people sing for the first time in years. Moses stands apart, watching the firelight dance across their faces. He remembers the bush, how it burned, how it never turned to ashes. Now he sees it everywhere, in every family saved, in every heart rekindled, in every tear of joy falling into the sand. The bush was never meant to stay on the mountain. It was meant to move, to live in the hearts of those who believe. Because when God's fire burns inside you, you don't crumble. You shine. Moses would go on to climb that same mountain again, this time to receive the law of God. He would lead a nation through storms, deserts, and rebellion. But he would never forget the first time he saw that flame. It was there he learned that. God calls broken people. God uses ordinary things, and God's fire is never meant to destroy, only to awaken. Maybe you feel like Moses once did, like your best years are behind you, like your failures have disqualified you. But listen, the same God who spoke from the fire is still speaking today. The bush may have burned long ago, but his presence still burns now, in every heart willing to turn aside and see. The question isn't whether God still speaks. It's whether we'll stop long enough to listen. In a world full of noise and distraction, how many burning bushes do we walk past every day? A person in need, a moment of conviction, a whisper in prayer. Maybe the miracle you've been waiting for is already right in front of you, but you haven't turned aside to see it. When you do, you'll realize something Moses learned in that desert. God doesn't need perfect people. He needs people who are willing to take off their shoes and say, "Here I am." The fire that never turned to ashes is still burning today, not in bushes, but in hearts. In the mother who keeps praying for her child, in the man who forgives when it makes no sense, in the believer who holds on to hope when everything seems lost. That is the fire of God. It doesn't fade, it doesn't consume, it transforms, and maybe, just maybe, that same eternal flame is calling your name tonight. If you've ever felt too far gone, too unworthy, too broken to be used by God, remember Moses? He wasn't chosen because he was brave. He was chosen because he answered. And when you answer the call, when you dare to step closer to the fire, you'll find that the God who spoke from the bush is still waiting to speak through you. So take a breath, look around, listen for the whisper in the flame. It's calling your name. Because the bush never burned out, and neither will the love of God. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that God still speaks through fire. And if you'd like to hear more stories of faith, hope, and redemption, subscribe, because this is just the beginning. The fire still burns, always has, always will. The end.